What do you see when you look at the stars from the Golden Age? You see their beauty, grace, or talent perhaps. But what if I told you there was more to these stars that you could have possibly imagined? What if you found out some of them were deeply dark and twisted individuals who were disliked and hated by most people in their time? Would that make you change your mind about them? Let's find out. Gene Kelly. Now there's a name that instantly conjures up images of dazzling dance sequences and iconic musicals. He was a revolutionary force in Hollywood, changing the way dance was filmed and perceived with masterpieces like Singin' in the Rain and An American in Paris. But hold on, there's more to Kelly than just his smooth moves and charming smile. You see, Kelly was a perfectionist, and boy, did it show. He could be incredibly tough on his co-stars and crew members. His insistence on precision and excellence was legendary, but it also earned him a reputation for being harsh and overly critical. Just ask Debbie Reynolds, who starred alongside him in Singin' in the Rain. She famously recounted how demanding and disrespectful Kelly could be, pushing her to the very limits of her physical capabilities during those grueling dance rehearsals. Why was he so tough? Well, Kelly's drive for perfection was rooted in his deep passion for dance and filmmaking. He wasn't just performing. He was revolutionizing the way dance was integrated into cinema. However, this intense dedication sometimes came at a cost. His demanding nature strained relationships with colleagues and friends, who often found themselves at the receiving end of his relentless pursuit of perfection. Yet, it's hard to argue with the results. Kelly's genius and high standards brought out the best in those around him. Look at Hello, Dolly, starring Barbra Streisand, where he continued to innovate, exploring new ways to blend dance into different media. His work was nothing short of groundbreaking, proving that sometimes great art requires great sacrifice, not just from the artists themselves, but from everyone involved. Mae West? Just hearing her name probably conjures up images of a bold, brassy woman who could deliver a one-liner with more punch than a prizefighter, doesn't it? Famous for her witty comebacks and daring persona, Mae West wasn't just an actress. She was a force of nature. Born into an era of conservative norms, she shattered them with her fearless attitude. But did you know that West was also a talented playwright and screenwriter? Yep, she wasn't just performing in front of the camera. She was pulling the strings behind the scenes, too. Movies like She Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel, all her handiwork. West had a knack for pushing the boundaries of content in American films, making them racier, sassier, and way more fun. Her confident, no-holds-barred style turned her into a symbol of liberation and a pioneering advocate for women's empowerment in an industry and society dominated by men. Now, to achieve all this, West needed a personality that matched her ambitions, dominant and unapologetic. She insisted on having final approval over her film's scripts, casting, and production details. Some folks saw this as being overbearing and tough to work with. But to Mae, it was all about maintaining control over her art and vision. Her hands-on approach wasn't always smooth sailing. Directors and studio executives often found themselves clashing with her, unaccustomed to an actress who wouldn't just sit pretty and read her lines. West wasn't just breaking the mold. She was smashing it to pieces and making her own. If she had your back, you'd love her. But I guess you can see how those who she clashed with hated her guts. Jennifer Jones. You know, at work, we all knew that who we wanted to tell off, but were too polite to. Well, Jennifer Jones was that office and people hated her for it. Jennifer's drive to succeed was nothing short of extraordinary, but it came at a cost. Her ambition often led her to use manipulative tactics to secure roles, which didn't sit well with her peers. You see, she was known for her willingness to go to great lengths to land the parts she wanted, often stepping over others to get there. For instance, she fiercely competed for the lead role in The Song of Bernadette 1943, which ultimately won her an Academy Award. Her aggressive pursuit of the role left many colleagues feeling resentful and wary of her. One notable incident occurred during the filming of Duel in The Sun 1946, where Jones clashed with co-star Gregory Peck and director King Vidor. Her insistence on multiple takes and frequent changes to her costumes and makeup delayed production and frustrated the crew. Her behavior was seen as unnecessarily demanding and self-centered, leading to a strained working environment, and her being so despised. Harry Cohn. It is not unusual that most Hollywood producers and directors were mean and difficult to work with, but Harry takes the cake. Harry Cohn was the co-founder and president of Columbia Pictures, but he ruled Columbia Pictures with an iron fist. He was infamous for his bullying tactics, which created a hostile work environment. Cohn's management style was characterized by fear and intimidation. He would publicly berate and humiliate his employees, reducing many to tears. His office, known as the Throne Room, was a place of dread for anyone summoned there. One notorious example of his bullying involved director Frank Capra. Despite Capra's significant contributions to the studio's success, Cohn would frequently belittle him and undermine his confidence. Cohn's relentless criticism and micromanagement led to numerous clashes between the two, making their professional relationship extremely difficult. Cohn's intimidation wasn't limited to directors and high-profile stars. It extended to everyone who worked at Columbia. He maintained strict control over the studio lot, using fear to ensure compliance. His frequent outbursts and demeaning remarks created a toxic atmosphere that stifled creativity and morale, and ultimately led him to being on this list. Gloria Grahame. Back then, Hollywood was so strict, especially when it came to women having affairs or sleeping around. Now, imagine sleeping with your own stepson. Gloria Grahame's personal life was rife with scandal, the most notorious being her affair with her stepson, Anthony Ray. The affair began when Anthony was just a teenager and Grahame was still married to his father, director Nicholas Ray. When the relationship came to light, it caused an uproar in Hollywood. The scandal reached its peak when Grahame married Anthony Ray in 1960, shortly after her divorce from Nicholas Ray. This marriage was considered one of the biggest taboos in Hollywood history and severely damaged her reputation. The public and her peers were shocked and appalled, viewing her actions as morally reprehensible. Grahame's personal struggles extended beyond her marriages. She had a well-known affair with actor Glenn Ford, which was a subject of much gossip in Hollywood. Her volatile relationships and frequent changes in partners made her a constant subject of tabloid headlines. These scandals detracted from her work as an actress, leading many to focus more on her personal life than her professional accomplishments. Orson Welles. Ever heard of Citizen Kane? Of course you have. It's frequently hailed as one of the greatest films ever made. But here's the kicker. Behind the genius and charisma of Orson Welles, the man behind the masterpiece, lay a personality often described as difficult and egocentric. Intrigued? Let's dig deeper. Welles was a force to be reckoned with, a whirlwind of talent who demanded nothing short of complete creative control. He was infamous for his disregard for budgetary constraints, which led to numerous fiery clashes with Hollywood producers and financiers. Picture this: studios cringing at the sight of Welles walking into a room because they knew his projects were destined for extensive delays and colossal budget overruns. It wasn't just a hiccup. It was a recurring nightmare that marred his reputation in Tinseltown and made securing funding a Herculean task. But there's more. Welles wasn't just stubborn, he set insanely high standards for himself and everyone around him. His colleagues often shared tales of his unyielding nature, recounting how his insistence on perfectionism created a whirlwind of contentious relationships. Yet, this stubborn streak was a double-edged sword. His brilliance made him uncompromising, fiercely fighting to bring his artistic vision to life, sometimes at the cost of personal and professional bonds. And for the most part, at the cost of being despised. Cholula Bankhead. Imagine being high majority of the time and smelling like drugs and alcohol even when you're at work. Wouldn't be surprised if that person made this list, would you? Well, that is precisely the case with Cholula Bankhead. Bankhead's behavior was nothing short of legendary, and not always in a good way. She was known for her heavy drinking and drug use, which often landed her in the tabloids for all the wrong reasons. At parties, she would go far beyond just having a good time. She would be the life of the party, but also the most out-of-control guest. For instance, she once famously said, "Cocaine isn't habit-forming. I should know I've been using it for years." Her substance abuse wasn't just a personal issue. It spilled over into her professional life, making her unreliable and difficult to work with. But besides all that, Bankhead's sexual openness was another major reason she was so hated in Hollywood. In an era when such matters were kept strictly behind closed doors, she made no secret of her bisexuality. She had affairs with both men and women, and she didn't care who knew it. Obviously, this was considered scandalous and inappropriate by the standards of the time. Her relationships with women, in particular, were whispered about in hushed tones. As a matter of fact, it was her affair with actress Patsy Kelly that caused such a huge scandal at the time. Edward G. Robinson. Most people know him as the quintessential tough guy from classic gangster films. But behind the iconic roles and memorable screen presence lay a personality that many found, well, let's just say, challenging. Robinson wasn't exactly the warm and fuzzy type. Known for his strong opinions and forthright manner, he could come across as unreasonable and uncompromising. On set, he demanded respect and professionalism, often walking the thin line between leadership and dictatorship. His high expectations led to more than a few strained relationships with colleagues. But there's more to Robinson than just his prickly persona. He was deeply involved in political activism, especially in advocating for anti-fascist causes before and during World War II. Admirable, right? Absolutely. But this also made him a contentious figure during the McCarthy era, a time when being politically outspoken could derail your career, and it did affect his professional life, leading to his blacklisting. Yet, Robinson's talent was undeniable. He became immortalized in films for portraying tough, no-nonsense characters, especially in classics like Little Caesar. With his distinct voice and powerful screen presence, he became synonymous with the gangster genre, crafting a niche that made him one of the most recognizable faces in cinema during the 1930s and 1940s. Despite the blacklist, Robinson didn't fade into obscurity. He continued to work in theater and eventually made his way back to film and television. His resilience and talent kept him in the spotlight, allowing him to remain a respected figure in the industry until his death. Howard Hughes. Being rich and spoiled is already a red flag and a hate magnet, but when you're an incessant snub about it and leave your life so carefree, regardless of the feelings of others, it's not a surprise that this man would make this list. Howard Hughes was a film producer and businessman, legendary for being so erratic and unpredictable. He did whatever he wanted, and not many people could question him. His carefree nature and obsession with being clean became defining aspects of his public persona. But his obsession with being clean was so extreme, he developed a huge fear of germs. So to avoid them, he would often wear tissue boxes on his feet to avoid contamination, then lock himself in darkened rooms for months at a time, surrounded by meticulously arranged Kleenex boxes, refusing to see anyone. This behavior wasn't just odd, it made him the subject of ridicule and alienated many of his associates. And as he would disappear for long periods, his companies will be left in disarray, causing significant disruptions and making it difficult for his employees to manage their work effectively. For instance, during the production of the film The Outlaw 1943, Hughes's erratic decisions and constant interference caused numerous delays and budget overruns, frustrating the cast and crew. If you're enjoying this video so far, it would help us out so much if you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was one of Hollywood's brightest stars, known for her glamorous roles and commanding screen presence. Joan Crawford's personal life also played a significant role in shaping public perception. The most damaging blow to her reputation came posthumously with the publication of her adopted daughter Christina Crawford's memoir, Mommy Dearest. The book depicted Joan Crawford as an abusive and unhinged mother, alleging severe physical and emotional abuse. Christina's memoir described incidents of extreme discipline, including beatings and punishments for minor infractions. The infamous wire hangers incident, where Crawford reportedly beat Christina for using wire hangers instead of padded ones, became a symbol of her alleged cruelty. The book, and the subsequent film adaptation, painted a harrowing picture of Crawford's home life, contrasting sharply with her glamorous public persona. If you enjoyed this video, do hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. We're all about sharing interesting stories and facts from old Hollywood. But in the meantime, which name do you think didn't make this list that you believe absolutely should? Let us know in the comments.